In September 2023, one of the largest casino companies in America received a phone call. 10 minutes later, hackers were inside their systems. They didn't use malware. They didn't exploit a software vulnerability. They didn't need a single line of code. They just called the help desk, said the right words, and walked straight through the front door. The group behind it was mostly teenagers, and by the time anyone figured out who they were, they had already done it 100 more times. Number 1. The Weapon, from 2021 to 2022. There is a version of hacking that looks like what movies show: dark rooms, sophisticated exploits that tunnel through firewalls, bypass encryption, and leave no trace. The kind of operation that requires years of technical training, specialized hardware, and the backing of a nation-state with resources to match. Scattered Spider did none of that. What they discovered, early, and with a clarity that would embarrass every corporate security department in America, was that the most sophisticated technical defenses in the world had a gap in them that no software patch could fix. The gap was the human being answering the phone. Here is how it worked. Every large company has a help desk. Its job is to assist employees who are locked out of accounts, have forgotten passwords, or need access to systems. The help desk exists to be helpful, to resolve problems quickly, to remove friction, to get employees back to work. It is, by design, oriented toward saying yes. Scattered Spider called the help desk. They did it deliberately, not randomly. Before making a single call, they researched their target. They found the name of a real employee from LinkedIn, from company directories, from data available publicly online. They found the employee's ID number, their department, and their manager's name. They built enough of a profile that, when they called the help desk and said they were that employee, locked out of their account and urgently needing access, they could answer every verification question correctly. The help desk, doing its job, reset the password, handed over the multi-factor authentication codes, and provided access to systems that the actual employee had spent years earning the right to use. The entire operation took minutes, sometimes less. What Scattered Spider understood was that the billions of dollars companies spent on firewalls, encryption, and endpoint security had created an illusion of safety, while the person answering the help desk remained completely unprotected. They started in 2021, targeting telecom companies and business process outsourcing firms. Small hits: credential theft, SIM swapping, the process of convincing a phone carrier to transfer a victim's phone number to a SIM card the attackers controlled, giving them access to every two-factor authentication code sent to that number. The money was in cryptocurrency. High net worth individuals whose phone numbers they had hijacked saw their wallets drained before they knew anything had happened. It worked, consistently, repeatedly, against companies that had invested heavily in technical security and almost nothing in training. The humans those systems depended on. So they scaled up, and they went looking for bigger targets. By 2022, Scattered Spider had a system. Teenagers and young adults spread across the United States and United Kingdom, communicating through Telegram and Discord, coordinating attacks in real time across time zones, sharing techniques and targets, and the credentials they harvested like trading cards. What held them together was culture. Members shared scripts, word-for-word transcripts of help desk calls that had worked, refined across dozens of attempts into something approaching an art form. They coached each other on tone, on pacing, on how to project the mild frustration of a legitimate employee locked out of their account rather than the anxiety of someone attempting fraud. They identified which companies had weaker verification procedures, which help desks were more susceptible to urgency, and which industries had the longest chains of outsourced IT support, meaning more humans in the loop, more opportunities for a convincing voice to find a sympathetic ear. They got very good at it very quickly. Between 2022 and 2023, Scattered Spider systematically moved up the target list. Twilio, a cloud communications company whose platform was used by thousands of businesses, was hit in 2022. The attackers sent phishing texts to employees, harvested credentials, and used their access to Twilio's systems to target Twilio's customers downstream. DoorDash was compromised through a Twilio supplier. Reddit was hit. Each attack fed the next, with access to one company's systems providing the intelligence needed to target another. The FBI was watching. Cybersecurity firms were tracking. The group had been identified, profiled, and named. Warnings were issued. Advisories were published. Companies were told what to look for. And Scattered Spider kept getting in anyway, because the warnings were about technical indicators, specific malware signatures, known IP addresses, the kind of threat intelligence that security teams were trained to act on. What the warnings could not fix was a help desk employee receiving a call from someone who knew the right employee's details and said all of it with the confident, slightly impatient tone of someone who had a meeting in 20 minutes and really needed this resolved. By mid-2023, the group had compromised over 45 companies across the United States, Canada, India, and the United Kingdom. They had stolen at least $11 million in cryptocurrency and had access to data from some of the largest corporations in the world. And then they decided to hit a casino. Number 3. The Casino Jobs, 2023. On a Tuesday afternoon in August 2023, someone called Caesars Entertainment's IT help desk. They said they were an employee. They had the right information. The help desk verified their identity and helped them reset their credentials. Within days, Scattered Spider had access to Caesars' internal systems, including the loyalty program database containing personal information on 65 million members. Driver's license numbers. Social security numbers. Decades of customer data from one of the largest gambling companies in the world. Caesars paid $15 million in ransom within days. Quietly, without a press release, without informing customers immediately. The payment was disclosed weeks later, buried in a regulatory filing, described in language so carefully constructed that it was possible to read it twice without fully understanding that one of America's largest casino operators had paid a criminal group of teenagers to make a problem go away. The problem didn't go away. 3 weeks later, on September 11, 2023, Scattered Spider hit MGM Resorts. MGM was bigger, more prepared, and unlike Caesars, they refused to pay. What followed was 10 days of operational chaos across 30 hotel and casino properties that, between them, represented some of the most recognizable addresses in Las Vegas: the Bellagio, the MGM Grand, Aria, Vdara, the Cosmopolitan. Slot machines stopped paying out. Hotel room keys stopped working. Guests checked in with pen and paper. Casino floors that processed millions of dollars in transactions per hour went offline. Automated teller machines failed. The reservation system collapsed. the entire cascade began with a single phone call. Scattered Spider had found MGM's IT vendor on LinkedIn. 10 minutes of research identified a current employee. One call to the MGM help desk, impersonating that employee and deploying the social engineering script they had refined across hundreds of previous calls, gave them the initial foothold they needed. From there, they moved laterally through MGM's systems, escalating privileges, identifying critical infrastructure, and deploying ransomware supplied by their partners in the Black Cat criminal organization. MGM's security team detected the intrusion and began shutting systems down. The attackers had anticipated this and moved faster. By the time MGM's incident response was fully activated, the damage was already done. MGM estimated the attack cost $100 million in lost revenue and recovery costs. The FBI, CISA, and multiple cybersecurity firms were all engaged in the response. They knew who Scattered Spider was. They had been tracking the group for over a year. Members had been identified. Online aliases had been mapped to real identities. No arrests were made for months. And in the interim, Scattered Spider boasted about it openly. On Telegram channels, members celebrated the MGM hit. One posted that they had earned $300,000 in the past 24 hours from a separate cryptocurrency exploit and suggested that dedicated operators could make $10 million a year. The confidence was not irrational. They had just brought down one of the largest hospitality companies in America, watched the FBI respond in real time, and walked away without consequence. The FBI's frustration was visible in how it began talking about the group publicly. This is something law enforcement agencies rarely do while an investigation is active. A joint advisory from the FBI and CISA in November 2023 named Scattered Spider explicitly detailed their tactics and issued guidance to companies on how to defend against them. The attacks continued anyway. The first arrest came in January 2024. Noah Michael Urban, 19 years old, from Palm Coast, Florida, known online as Sosa and King Bob. He was charged with wire fraud, conspiracy, and aggravated identity theft. Prosecutors alleged he had stolen at least $800,000 in cryptocurrency from 5 victims through SIM swapping attacks. He was released on bond, rearrested months later after allegedly committing additional crimes while cooperating with authorities, and eventually pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $13 million in restitution. The arrests accelerated through 2024. The cybersecurity community exhaled. Too early. Because Scattered Spider was not an organization that could be dismantled by arresting its leadership. It was a network, loosely connected, deliberately decentralized, with no single point of failure. When members were arrested, new ones moved into the gaps. When tactics were published in FBI advisories, they were modified and redeployed. When one ransomware partner collapsed, another was found. In early 2025, the attacks escalated again. Marks & Spencer, one of Britain's most recognizable retail brands, was hit with a ransomware attack attributed to Scattered Spider that disrupted online orders, payment systems, and internal operations for weeks. The company estimated losses of over £300 million, making it one of the most costly cyber attacks on a retail company in history. Co-op was hit simultaneously. Harrods was targeted. The attacks then crossed the Atlantic. Victoria's Secret, Adidas. In June 2025, the FBI issued a new public warning. 3 years after Scattered Spider's first documented attacks, with multiple members arrested, sentenced, and imprisoned, the FBI was still issuing sector-specific warnings about a group of teenagers whose primary weapon was a phone call. The arrests had consequences for the individuals caught. They had almost no consequence for the operation itself. September 2025 brought more charges. A 19-year-old UK national was charged with participating in 120 separate network intrusions. A separate member was arrested in Finland at Helsinki Airport, attempting to board a flight to Japan. The pattern was consistent: young, mobile, operating across jurisdictions that complicated extradition, generating revenue that funded a lifestyle visible enough on social media to attract rivals who occasionally responded with physical violence. And still it continued, because the arrests had targeted individuals. And the vulnerability those individuals had exploited, the human being answering the phone, the verification system built on the assumption that someone who knew the right information must be who they said they were, remained completely intact. Here is the thing that 3 years of Scattered Spider attacks revealed about corporate security in America. The problem was never the technology. Between 2021 and 2025, the companies Scattered Spider hit were not negligent organizations running outdated systems. They were Fortune 500 corporations with dedicated security teams, enterprise-grade firewalls, multi-factor authentication, endpoint detection, cloud security platforms, and annual cybersecurity budgets that ran into the hundreds of millions of dollars. MGM Resorts alone had a security infrastructure sophisticated enough that when the attack began, their team detected it and responded within hours. It did not matter, because none of that technology, none of the investment, addressed the specific vulnerability. Scattered Spider had identified and systematically exploited. They did not hack MGM. They did not hack Caesars. They did not hack Marks & Spencer or AT&T or Ticketmaster. They called someone whose job it was to be helpful and whose incentives pointed entirely toward saying yes, and they were helpful to the wrong person. Fixing a technical vulnerability is straightforward. You patch the software, you update the system. Fixing a human vulnerability is different. It requires changing how people think, how they respond under social pressure, how they balance helpfulness against suspicion in real time while managing a queue of 40 other calls. It requires restructuring the incentives that currently reward speed over security at every help desk in every company. It requires accepting that the friendliness and accessibility that make a help desk function are also the qualities that make it exploitable. That is a harder problem, a more expensive problem, a problem that touches organizational culture rather than just infrastructure. And it is a problem that most companies, even after watching MGM lose $100 million to a phone call, have not meaningfully solved. Which is why the FBI was still issuing new warnings in 2025. Which is why the arrests of individual members produced no measurable reduction in the volume of attacks. The teenagers in Scattered Spider did not discover a flaw in cybersecurity infrastructure. They discovered a flaw in how the world thinks about security. They found the gap between what companies spent their security budgets on and where their actual vulnerability lived. And they walked through it, hundreds of times, for 3 years. While the industry that was supposed to stop them kept looking for the malware. In August 2025, Noah Michael Urban reported to federal prison to begin a 10-year sentence. He was 21 years old. The month he arrived, Scattered Spider hit 3 more companies. That is the whole story, not the arrests, not the headlines, not the $100 million MGM lost, or the $15 million Caesars paid, or the £300 million Marks and Spencer wrote off. The real story is that a loose network of teenagers with phones and Telegram accounts found the one vulnerability that no security budget in the world was designed to fix. And 3 years later, with members in prison and the FBI issuing warnings about airlines, they were still finding it. The door was never the software. It was always the person answering the phone. And that person is still there. If you're curious about corporate crimes and breakdowns, subscribe for more. Click the link on the screen to keep watching.